Hello and welcome to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
Nope. I try to come along, help, do what I can. My name's Mike Piroworski. I will be your co-host for today. I am come to you live from the East Coast. That's the coast with the most, from the co-host with the most, here on The Rundown. 2A Views, Conservative News. Craig, you know what today is, don't you?
Oh, yes, I do.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos.
It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yum.
With
Gotta love that song. How can you not listen to that song and just be like, it's raining tacos?
So quick story. I'm having a fight with the satellite company people for my car radio, right?
Right.
So I'm just playing off the playlist in my off my phone, so it's no big deal really. Except I had a car full of people the other day, and I'm driving along, and we're listening to music, and that one came up on the rotation and started playing, and I just pretended like there was nothing wrong and kept going. And everybody in the car was like, "What in the crap are you listening to?" And I'm like, it's raining tacos. Come on. So,
Do you not know this song?
I know. I made him listen the whole way through. Yep.
I would definitely question their sanity if you do not know. If you do not know the song, trust me.
Street meats.
What'd you say?
That's it. So, do you have no loyalty to street meats? What's wrong with you people?
It's an American thing. Trust me.
Yep.
Like, I had someone the other day try to explain to me what a roach coach was. I was like, you do realize, like, all these trucks, these food trucks that have become so popular. I don't know if they're popular there, but here now food trucks are like the chic thing, right? It's like you do realize that those have been at construction sites for decades, right?
Yeah.
We call them roach coaches.
Yep. Yeah. Except now, the $2, $3 hamburger goes for $18 because it's a gourmet meat patty delivery system or some crap like that.
I know it. I remember one guy I used to go to regularly. I used to order a beef, bean, and cheese burrito, and the way in which he would say, I'll take a beef, bean, and cheese burrito. He'd be like, okay, beef, bean, and cheese.
Beef,
Bean, and cheese burrito.
Yeah.
It was hilarious.
Now he's got the same custom burrito for $17.
Yeah. Well, exactly. But the one thing I will say is, depending on the roach coach, there has always been some food trucks that have always been good eats. Not all the time, and usually they were taco trucks.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to call them roach coaches and the gut truck. Where's
there
the
you
gut
go.
Truck?
So we'll call that Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday history.
Flashback. There you go.
Flashback.
Yep,
there you go. All right, folks. Hey, however you are tuning in, do us a favor. Like, share, subscribe. Encourage your friends to do the same. Let them know. They can watch us on YouTube. They can watch us on Facebook. They can watch us on Spotify, OpsLens. They can also, we're also on Rumble. They can also listen to the program. You can listen to wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple iPods, Apple iTunes, Podcast Addict, Google Podcasts, or iHeartRadio. You can listen to the program, while you're driving, while you're doing whatever, while you're working in the yard, and enjoy the program all the same. But however you do it, make sure that you do it. Just saying.
Yeah, do that stuff. Do it now. Do it with the guy.
Do it now. All right, moving along into today's topics. You guys know we've been talking about the woke DAs that have been, some have been subject to recall elections throughout the nation. One of those, Mr. Gascon there in Los Angeles, California. Now, mind you, There have been multiple cases where individuals who he has let out of prison or have given because of short sentences or whatever have either victimized other individuals up to and including murders. We're talking people who he's let out of prison, have been let out, have gone on to conduct serious violent crimes against other individuals. Well, as it turns out, it looks like he may be surviving the latest attempt to recall him. Now, so what happened is they had until last week to turn in all of their signatures, and they had to have like something like 567 or 68,000 signatures in order to have the recall go forward for a vote. They turned in almost 720,000 signatures. And according to the Los Angeles, I guess it would be the county clerk's office, only about 520,000 of those signatures turned out to be valid signatures. Now, Mike and I had a brief conversation about this beforehand, about what we thought the outcome of this was going to be. But I think we came to an agreement as to what we thought about why and how this came to be. Did we not, Michael?
Yeah, this is ridiculous. Okay, I've got to get what is it, 700,000, right? They want correct 700,000.
They needed well, they didn't need 700,000. They needed 500 and something like about 570,000 signatures.
Okay, 570. So they turned in over 20% of those votes, 20% over, because you always anticipate at least 10% are going to be bad votes or duplicates or people that don't live in the district or whatever. But the part that's so hard to believe, Craig, is that the people they're trying to get recalled are the ones that got to count the votes. So it's the clerk who works with our district attorney there. So they let them count the votes. They let them, the signatures. They let them make sure the signatures are valid or not. That seems a little backwards to me. Like there should be an independent agency. There should be someone outside, the agency you're trying to get thrown out, right? You're trying to recall, but for letting them count the vote, you're letting the same team count the votes or count the valid signatures. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah. So what they're saying is about 90,000 of the signatures were people who were not even registered to vote. And then they're saying another 45,000 of the signatures were duplicate signatures.
Yes.
Oh, by the way, in this article is actually a little bit different because in the LA Times, they said that some of the signatures weren't recognizable. So
right.
Once again, I have a feeling that you're going to see some legal action. You're going to see, number one, there's going to be a recount of these. They're going to bring in someone outside of the clerk's office to take a look at these signatures and the signatures that are in question, and validate those, because that's about 135,000 signatures. Now, mind you, they only need about 45,000 of those signatures to be good. If 45,000 of those, basically if a third of those signatures are deemed to be good, the recall is on.
Yeah. So to give you folks an idea, it's normally when you have something like this, a recall done and everybody submits their signatures, normally there's about 10% you lose. You lose about 10% for those three reasons Craig just mentioned. The high end, the very, very high end would be 20%. And you never see that. So 20% is usually considered the safe number. You bring in 20% over what you need. The clerk's office threw out 27% of the votes. So,
well, here's what I'm wondering, because sometimes what they do, and this is the real question. Sometimes what they do is they don't even count all the signatures. They do samples, and if and then they'll make the decision based on samples. So I'm wondering if they did samples of them and didn't actually count the actual signatures. So that's question number one. Did they do that? And then question number two is going to be, taking a look at the questionable signatures and evaluating whether or not you can determine whether or not you can actually, if you take your time, determine whether or not they are actual valid signatures or not. Those are going to be the two things that are going to take place. To me, this reminds me of a book written by radio commentator Hugh Hewitt called "If It's Not Close, They Can't Cheat." And this is why it's so important that even if you think that we're going to win, even if you think conservatives are going to win, you don't pull back, you don't relax, you pile on. You give more and more. See, when you win an election 70-30, it's really hard for them to cheat. It's really hard for them to come up with enough ballots to beat you.
Greg, I absolutely get that. But again, 10% is the normal toss-out number, so they doubled it. And then the clerk's office goes and doubles it again, basically, right? And it pulls out 27% and says no. So, I mean, how much more would they have gone? I mean, if they had brought in 20% over, I'm still convinced the clerk's office would have said, no, there's 35% now that's not qualified.
Well, I think now they've got, even if they had said that, which they're saying it now, my point is that they now have a leg to stand on. All I'm saying is now they've got something to investigate. Yes. They've got 100. They've they've got like 135,000 signatures that they can go through, and they only got to come up with about 45,000 out of those actually being valid. Because I sincerely doubt, since they turned them in last week, that they verified which one, that they've gone through and verified all of them. I sincerely doubt.
Yeah, there's no way. I agree. There's probably some sort of sampling here, and that's it. Yeah. Right.
So, just know he's alive for now. His position is still there for now, but I have a feeling that it's this fight in this particular case is not over.
Yep. Agreed.
All right, moving right along. All right, I know as soon as you guys saw this in the lineup, in the rundown, I know you had to ask yourself, what the heck are they talking about? White teachers fired first. Well, in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which it's got to be because it's so cold there. I don't know what it is, but some of the wokest, craziest stuff has been coming out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. But there was an agreement with a teachers union that stipulates that white teachers will be laid off first. Basically, in the agreement, and they reached this last spring, exempts teachers from underrepresented populations from seniority-based layoffs, right? So here's kind of how it works. If you're in a school district and you need to make budget cuts, it's usually, last hired, first fired, right? Seniority, there's only one thing that is more important to a teachers union than seniority, and that is tenure, right? Tenure is the thing that makes it so almost impossible to fire a bad teacher. But in this case, what they're saying is seniority means nothing, right? If you are an underrepresented teacher, meaning if you are black, if you are Latino, if you are underrepresented. Now, by the way, here's the other question. I didn't see if it meant based just on race, because in this case, it would also probably mean if you are a man, then you should be. Then should there be layoffs, you will not be laid off. Now. All right, first, before I give my opinion, Mike, Mike, what do you think of this?
You know what I think they probably need to have more senior white people on the involved in these meetings, because I bet this happened when they weren't there. I bet this happened one day when they were they looked around the room and they said, where's all the white folk? Well, let's go ahead and write this into the agreement here, and we'll take care of that. So this sounds ridiculous. And folks, here's the deal, right? Is if, let's say, you're in a school that's predominantly African American, you got 80% African Americans that are at that school, that attend that school, but you have your teaching staff is 50% African American and 50% white. Well, if they have to do layoffs, the whites are going first. All the whites have to go first before they delve into the seniority portion, because the black teachers are underrepresented based on the population of the students. So you could have the teacher with 1 year's time in service being retained and the 25-year teachers being let go based on this policy.
Well, but here's the thing. And see, this to me, this is the kind of the camel's nose under the tent, because as a school board member, I've always said, look, we should not be firing teachers based on seniority. We ought to be, if we're going to lay them off, it ought to be in order of, let's keep the best teachers, and the ones who have not been performing, we ought to be able to get rid of them. Now, this sets a precedent that says, look, you've always said that the seniority thing is a non-starter. Well, that that it's sacred. Well, now we know it's not. Now we know that on the altar of diversity, you are willing to sacrifice seniority. Well, guess what? How about on the altar of educating our students, on providing the best teachers for our students? Why can we not? Why can that not be the reason that we throw away the idea of seniority and once again get rid of the worst teachers if we need to lay off teachers?
Yeah. Listen, Craig. Additionally, I think that this won't stand the first round of court hearings, so or petitions. The first level, the county court that hears this is going to toss this agreement out as invalid based on racial discrimination. So, that's hopefully the good news. But again, you're talking about Minneapolis courts, so who knows?
Right. Well, I'm getting the impression that one of the reasons they push in this was because their teachers' ranks are not very diverse. And that probably is because, no offense, but because there are not as many, in particular, because there are not as many teachers of color as they would like. A lot of teachers of color, if you're a good teacher, you have your choice of assignments. And I'll tell you, you see that a lot here in California education. Black male teachers are underrepresented in California, especially at the primary level and as well as the secondary level. And so oftentimes what happens is if you are a black male and you are a good teacher, and a lot of districts are looking for diversity, you can have your pick of districts where you want to go and teach. If you don't have that, then you have a problem as a teacher, right? There's an issue with you. Right.
Yeah. Understood.
But see, you don't have to do that. What we did in our school district, when I started on the school board in my school district, we had one black teacher, and she didn't want to admit she was black. Just so you know, what we did was we diversified and we got a more diverse teaching pool because as our teachers got older and retired, what we did was we just simply made sure that we went places to recruit people to become teachers where we would find a diverse teacher pool. We didn't just go to our normal sources, we went other places. And as a result, we had a more diverse applicant pool and we hired the best applicants. And that meant because we had a more diverse applicant pool, we have now a more diverse staff. And I'm saying the biggest problem with a lot of these school districts is they don't actively go places where they can find people who might be interested in becoming teachers. Because honestly, despite what people say, being a teacher pays pretty darn well, has pretty darn good job security. The benefits, depending on the district, can be very good, but you get a significant amount of time off. Being a teacher is, especially if it's a calling for you, if it's something that you love and enjoy doing, it's a great profession. It is.
Yeah, it is.
Some of the stuff that now some of the public schools are making you teach and do may cause a problem. But if you get in the right district, the right situation, it's phenomenal.
It is very much so. Very rewarding.
Can be very, very rewarding. Yeah. So I don't know why I just put you back up there.
Cameo.
I say rewarding, and I put Mike up on the screen.
Here's your reward, baby.
All right, moving right along. CNN defends fake news. Now, during my time working with the Firearms Policy Coalition, I have had more than my fair share of times in which I have had to debunk information from, what is it called? It's called the Gun Violence Archive. The Gun Violence Archive, right? Now, this is a website where they tout themselves as a nonprofit that is attempting to, they want to identify and recognize and note every single time there is a mass shooting event or a mass casualty event involving firearms throughout the country. And more, even they'll acknowledge, you're hearing them being cited by policymakers, by news media, including CNN, right? And by the way, they've actually were noted by a couple of the dissenting justices in their opinions relating to Second Amendment issues in Bruin and other cases. But here's what's funny is what happens is the instances that they use, and we all know this, Mike, you and I have talked about this before, the data that they use to determine what is a mass shooting is wholly inconsistent with what the industry has included or concluded equals what is a mass shooting, correct?
Correct. We understand that the FBI standard is 3 or more, right? And that's not supposed to include the suspect. But the interpretation that we get from all these other agencies is much less. They'll go with the 3, including the suspect. They'll include stuff like the murder suicide at home. They'll include like when they talk about the school shootings. If a shooting occurred in a parking lot, at an open parking lot at a school at midnight involving 2 40-year-old males, they still call that a school shooting because it happened on school grounds, even though we were 48 hours removed from any students being there. So they also double count. If it's dual reported from one agency to another, if the fire department reports that crime because they were there to provide medical rescue, and the police department reports that crime because they were there for law enforcement issues, they'll count that as twice. That's 2 separate reports of it. So they'll find any way they can to juice these numbers.
Well, yeah, and the FBI also separates out those that are shootings that are related to gang and drug violence, because they see that as a separate issue. And by the way, it is a separate issue.
Yes.
But they see it as a separate issue. Yet the folks over here at the Gun Violence Archive do not. They have been debunked a number of times by not just by the usual suspects, folks like the Crime Prevention Research Center, but by a number of other individuals, a number of other groups, simply because once again their numbers just do not add up. They'll use news reports. And the news reports, and you and I both know, especially local news reports, are not always accurate. Sometimes those news reports will be updated and they won't bother to update the report. Right? They won't bother to update their stats or their statistics or information. So, but yet and still, CNN constantly defends them as a source of information. And here's the thing, folks, and this is well, you already know this. There's lies, there's damn lies, and there's statistics. And it's one thing to defend a source if you honestly and truly believe that the information is valid. But once that has been debunked, you can't just support data and only data that supports whatever it is that you believe. You have to at least be willing to question all data, question the validity of it, look at the validity of it. And in this particular case, CNN is standing up for data that they know is false.
Yep, absolutely. They know it's false, and they don't care, Craig. That's the real issue, right? They know what they're doing. They don't care. They're trying to shape the message the way they want it to be shaped.
Well, yeah, the goal is, once again, it's propaganda, not press.
Yep, exactly.
Moving right along. All right, this one, Mike, I did not know what to think about this one when I saw this one in the news. But the first case of monkeypox to go from man to dog has been identified by the CDC, and has led has been identified as, which by the way has led the CDC to update its guidance on the virus. Mike, I have to admit, I did not read this story in a whole lot of detail, except to say, I wonder what it was that this guy was doing with this dog to lead to a monkeypox transmission.
Now, you're sure you want me to answer that question?
No, I don't want you to answer that question.
Okay. All right.
It's a rhetorical question.
Because depending on how many channels you want to stay on, I've got a whole bunch of answers here. That's it. We can go for days. Uh, Listen, I will say this, Craig. This just goes to show, as when I remember when we first started dealing with monkeypox, and they talked about who's the most affected by monkeypox. We made the correlation between when AIDS first became out, and it was GRID. Remember that once it started to become a more prevalent on the scene, and they realized how it spread. Not only were they wrong about the how it spread, but they had to change the name based on it. So monkeypox seems to be one of those things where again we're going to learn more about it. It's not like a COVID style disease or a virus where it spreads like the common cold would. It's different, and I think we're going to continue to see some of these interesting facts come up about it. Now, I don't think it's going to get nearly as widespread as anything else has, but it's still something we don't know as much about as we think we know.
Well, so when you read into the story, and I was just kind of perusing it real quick. So it turns out these were two individuals. They were male partners who were not exclusive. They had been with other partners, and then they had both shown symptoms. And they slept in the same bed, and they slept in the same bed and the dog evidently slept in the bed with them. Now, they're one of the things that had been noted in the CDC, and this was actually a while ago, where they noted that, it can get into bedding and stuff like that. And so my guess is that's what happened.
Right.
They both had it. They slept in the same bedding and sheets and all of that, and it wound up getting to the dog, which, by the way, it continues to show, look, this is not while it can be transmitted by sex, it is not a sexually transmitted disease. It also shows that, by the way, it ain't a gay disease, because if it can go to a dog, it can go to a person of another gender, another sex. So just so y'all know, just be careful of who you have intimate contact with, right?
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yep.
Just saying. Yeah, because ultimately, the point is, we don't want to see this thing spreading. We just don't. Aye. Okay, moving right along to our parting shot today, or we have several parting shots. We'll go with this first one, which I wanted to go with because it kind of fits with our whole little CNN fake news story. It doesn't really need much explaining, but I'll let Mike go ahead and, for those who are actually listening, go ahead and describe it.
Okay, so it's got you can see this. It's got Borat, right? The Sacha Baron, whatever his name is, and he's standing there in the woods as the Borat character with these two country boys, and he says, and he's got CNN on his chest. It says CNN, and he says, "What type of AR-15 is this?" And the other two guys are like, "That's a tortoise." It's a tortoise. Because to CNN, everything's an AR-15. It's all an assault weapon. It's a machine gun.
Exactly. And that's pretty much how CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, CNBC, and in some cases even Fox News, that's how they all, and local news and New York Times and on, that's how they report on firearms issues. Yep. They are completely 100% ignorant, and those who are not ignorant are deceptive. Sadly, that is the truth. And along those same lines, I love this one because people always, it's amazing to me how people who are always questioning the Christian faith of those who believe in the right to keep and bear arms, right? They always question, well, if you're a Christian, you should believe in peace. And why would you want a gun if you are a Christian? And the first thing I find interesting is the people who are always asking those questions are generally not Christian. They don't know the Bible, probably haven't even ever picked up a Bible. Because if they did, they would know better than to ask some of this stuff. But this is an interesting one. This is a funny one nonetheless. So here you have a lady on the phone. It's the one from, was it Jared from the State Farm commercial? The lady from the State Farm commercial. She says, Jesus never carried a gun. And then you have the husband saying, yeah, well, he was also nailed to a board by a tyrannical government for practicing free speech.
Right?
Yeah. Do I really need to explain that one, Mike?
No, I hope not.
I hope not. If I have to explain that one, then you're watching the wrong show. Just saying,
Yep.
Keep watching. You'll learn. You'll get it.
Yep. Yep. And remember, if Jesus had a gun, it would have been a 45. So
Right. By the way, he also said if a man does not own a sword, he should sell his cloak. He should sell his cloak and go get one.
he did.
Just saying.
Yeah.
All right, and the last one. Why don't you go ahead and read this one for us, Mike?
Thank God that Smoking in the Boys Room was released in 1973. Had it been today, we'd have vaping in the gender neutral area. It was also re-released, I think, in 86, 87, right? By Motley Crue.
Yes.
Right? Smoking in the Boys Room. Smoking in the Boys.
And and still nothing has changed. So 1987, that was the year I graduated from high school, and I need to think about how much has changed between now and then. It makes me wonder if
It's
my
all the
parents
same.
felt the same way. I mean, have we really just seen society decline that fast in what I thought was such a short period of time, but I guess evidently it wasn't.
There's one root cause to it all, Craig, between the differences between 1987 and today. I blame it all on MTV when they stopped playing music.
There you go. I thought you were going to blame the designated hitter.
Listen, if you're music television and you don't have to play music anymore, why does the rest of the world have to play by the rules too? It just all went to hell in a handbasket at that point.
Nope. Like I said, I thought you were going to blame the designated hitter.
No, that's been around since 71, and that's been the world's problems. That's a whole different set of problems.
That's a whole different set of
87.
problems. Pitchers thinking they are hitters. Or hitters thinking they're baseball players.
Yes.
All right, Mikey.
Exactly.
Time for a shout out to our sponsors.
Let's see here. Can you still hear me? Can you still got me?
I still got you, sir.
All right, there we go. Let's say hello to our good friends over at the California Republican Assembly. And then, of course, our friends at uscombatgear.com.
That's right, folks. Links to their websites are in the description to this video or podcast, whichever one, however you are partaking. Make sure you visit them. If you like what you see, like what you hear, go ahead and drop some cash on them and let them know that the guys over at The Rundown sent you. All right, well, that's going to be it for our Taco Tuesday. I am going to go and enjoy me some tacos. I hope that you go and do the same. I hope that you remember to encourage your friends to, I hope that you remember to like, share, subscribe, and encourage your friends to do the same. We will see you mañana on Hump Day.
Hump Day.